Sexual energy is fuel. Your body produces it constantly, and you decide whether to burn it immediately for a moment of pleasure or let it accumulate into concentrated power that eventually ignites. Most men are burning their fuel as fast as they produce it, never allowing enough to collect in one place to generate the heat necessary for combustion. They remain at room temperature their entire lives, comfortable, safe, lukewarm. Retention is the conscious choice to let the fuel accumulate, to allow pressure to build, to create the conditions for ignition. And make no mistake, if you commit to this path long enough, you will ignite. The accumulated sexual energy inside you will reach critical mass and suddenly convert from potential into kinetic force that explodes outward into every area of your life. And the impact is life-changing. The pressure. The first thing you notice after a few weeks of retention is pressure. Physical pressure in your lower body that feels almost uncomfortable because you're not accustomed to containing this much energy. Mental pressure in your thoughts as accumulated force seeks outlets and expression. Emotional pressure that makes you feel more intense, more alive, more present than you've felt in years. This pressure is the fuel accumulating, the energy building, the power concentrating in your system without being released. It's supposed to feel intense. Your body has never held this much life force before because you've been constantly draining it since puberty. Now for the first time, you're allowing the tank to fill, and the fullness creates sensations your depleted nervous system doesn't recognize. This pressure demands expression. Energy cannot remain static. It must move, must act, must manifest in some form. If you don't give it conscious direction through productive work, physical training, creative pursuits, or spiritual practice, it will find unconscious outlets through nocturnal emissions, agitation, or the overwhelming urge to release, just to relieve the internal intensity. Most men break their streaks here because the pressure becomes too much without understanding that what they're feeling is power trying to express itself, not suffering that needs to end. The pressure is the fuel compressed and ready to combust. You're standing at the moment before ignition, and the only question is whether you'll maintain the compression long enough for the spark to catch or release the pressure and return to cold emptiness where nothing burns. The moment of ignition. Ignition doesn't happen gradually. It arrives suddenly, usually somewhere between 60 and 90 days, when the accumulated energy in your system reaches critical mass and spontaneously converts into unstoppable drive and motivation you've never experienced before. One day you wake up and something fundamental has shifted. The resistance you used to feel toward difficult tasks is gone. The hesitation before taking action has disappeared. You're not thinking about what you should do. You're doing it, immediately, with a force behind your actions that feels almost violent in its intensity. This is ignition. The compressed sexual energy has caught fire and is now burning through obstacles that would have stopped you cold in your depleted state. The transformation from passive to explosive is so dramatic that men often describe this moment as a second puberty or spiritual awakening. Tasks you've been putting off for months get completed in days. Projects you thought would take years suddenly seem achievable in months. Your body moves with purpose and power. Your mind cuts through problems like a blade. Your words carry weight that makes people listen and comply. You're not trying to be powerful. You are power expressing itself through your actions. The fuel that was slowly accumulating has reached the temperature required for combustion, and now it's burning hot and bright, consuming everything in its path and converting it into forward momentum. You've become the fire, and fire doesn't ask permission or hesitate or doubt itself. It burns. State of elevation. Operating in a permanent state of elevated intensity becomes normal once ignition occurs, and you maintain the retention that fuels it. What used to feel like peak states now becomes your baseline. The energy that burned so hot at first settles into sustained force that doesn't fluctuate wildly, but remains consistently powerful. You're not experiencing occasional bursts of motivation followed by crashes. You're living at a level of drive and capability that most people only touch briefly in their best moments. This is what's possible when sexual energy is allowed to accumulate and combust, rather than being constantly wasted through release. You've accessed a state of being that's rare because most men never build enough fuel to ignite in the first place. The fire either stays lit or goes out. There's no middle ground. Continued retention feeds the flame and keeps you burning at levels that accomplish more in weeks than your depleted former self accomplished in months. But one release extinguishes everything instantly, dropping you back to cold and empty, where the fire was just a memory you're trying to recreate. This is why men who've experienced ignition guard their retention fiercely. They know what they're protecting isn't just a streak or a practice, but the flame itself. Once you've burned this bright, going back to cold existence isn't just undesirable, it's unbearable. You'll do whatever necessary to keep the fire alive, because life without it feels like death. The choice is simply stay cold like everyone else, or become the fire that burns through every obstacle in your path. One is comfortable, one is powerful. You can't be both. Choose.